The hall was silent, filled with golden candlelight and thick with the scent of old books, dragonbone artifacts and dust. King Aegon IV, the Unworthy, lay on his deathbed, sweating, muttering, rotting in pieces. Around him stood his family, real and false, noble and bitter. His true-born son Daemon stood calm but distant, watching the slow end of a father who'd never loved him. And among the bastards stood Daemon Waters, tall, silver-haired, every bit a dragon. Daemon looked at his dying father with mixed feelings. He had grown up hearing rumors, whispers, that he was more kingly than Daemon, more loved by knights, more noble in heart. When Aegon gifted him the sword Blackfyre, ancestral blade of kings, it felt like the realm itself was calling him. But not today. As Aegon died and Daemon was crowned king, a storm brewed quietly. Lords began whispering in back rooms. Daemon should have been king. Some even approached him. Bittersteel, his half-brother Brynden Rivers, hated Daemon's Dornish blood. "You have the sword," Bittersteel said one night. "You have the people. The realm would follow you." Daemon listened. He watched, but something in him hesitated. He thought of his sons, still young. He thought of Daemon's peace with Dorne, and how the realm had been bled too many times already. He remembered how his mother, the king's mistress, had begged him to be more than a sword, and finally he spoke. "I will not spill blood for a crown my brother already wears," Daemon said. "I may have Blackfyre, but I have no thirst for ruin." His choice shook the court. At first Daemon was cold toward him, uncertain if this was a trap. But slowly, Daemon's loyalty began to show. He disbanded the loyalist knights who had gathered secretly under his name. He sent word to rebellious lords to stand down. Bittersteel cursed him and rode east, swearing he'd return with fire. For the first time in generations, the realm breathed. Daemon became Daemon's sword, his champion in tourneys and court. They were not friends, but they were brothers, and sometimes that was enough. The lords of the Reach and Stormlands grumbled, but war did not come. But peace in Westeros is never true peace. In the shadows, Bittersteel built his army. Across the narrow sea, the Golden Company formed with one dream, a Blackfyre on the throne. And though Daemon had stayed loyal, his name still stirred rebellion. It was only a matter of time before the old whispers returned, this time not from Daemon, but from those who still believed he should have taken the crown when he had the chance. And soon a raven arrived at King's Landing. It carried one sentence: "The dragon shall return with golden wings, and the traitor shall burn beside his brother." The raven's message spread like wildfire. At court, nobles whispered behind raised goblets. Some smirked, others frowned. King Daemon read the scroll again and again, his knuckles white. Daemon stood nearby, silent. The words were not only a threat to the crown, they were a challenge to his very name. "The traitor shall burn beside his brother." Daemon knew exactly who wrote it. Bittersteel. Brynden Rivers had never forgiven him. Once brothers by blood, now enemies by choice. Bittersteel had fled to Essos years ago, and now it seemed he had returned with the Golden Company behind him. "I gave up a crown," Daemon said quietly, "and he calls me traitor." "You were wise," Daemon replied, though his voice was stiff. "But now we must see how long your wisdom holds." The court didn't trust Daemon fully. They never would. To many lords, he was still the man who could have taken the throne. With a nod, the bastard who held Blackfyre, the blade of Aegon the Conqueror. His sword alone could raise 10,000 men, but he stayed. He stayed by Daemon's side. Still, the fear crept in. Lord Peake, once a staunch ally of the crown, vanished. From Highgarden, whispers reached the capital, mercenaries landing in the Stormlands, strange banners riding through the Kingswood. War was coming, even if Daemon didn't want it. And when the Golden Company finally landed near Massey's Hook, it came with brutal speed. Bittersteel led the vanguard himself, his golden armor shining like sunlight. Behind him marched thousands of battle-hardened sellswords, men who had waited decades to bring a Blackfyre to the throne. But they didn't bring Daemon. They brought Daemon's son, Aenys Blackfyre, tall, handsome, and utterly convinced the crown belonged to him. It shattered Daemon. his own son. Raised with honor, now seduced by Bittersteel's poison. The boy carried a forged blade, pretending it was Blackfyre, and claimed he was returning to take what Daemon had stolen. Daemon rode into the war not as a rebel, but as a knight of the king. In full armor with Blackfyre at his side, he met Daemon in the Red Keep. "Let me go," he said. "Let me face them. I gave up a crown once. I'll do it again, this time for the realm." Daemon looked at him, long and hard. "Can you face your own son?" "No," Daemon admitted, "but I can't let him destroy everything I tried to protect either." And so the king gave him command of the royal host. It was a bitter irony. The man once feared for starting a rebellion now marched to crush one, against his own blood. The two armies met near Duskendale. A grey sky hung low over the field. Crows circled already, as if smelling the dead before they fell. Bittersteel stood across the field in his golden plate. Hyannis rode beside him, his face full of pride, his banner bearing a black dragon breathing red fire. Daemon stood tall with Daemon's banner above him. He did not flinch. "I raised you to be a dragon," he whispered under his breath. "Not." To his shadow, and with a cry the battle began. Steel clashed, men screamed, arrows darkened the sky, and in the heart of the storm, father and son raced toward each other. Daemon Blackfyre raised the true sword of kings, Blackfyre, and charged. His face was stone. Steel rang like thunder. Daemon's warhorse thundered across the blood-soaked field, mud and gore flying beneath its hooves. Around him men screamed, some in the name of King Daemon, others for Prince Aenys Blackfyre. The banners of both dragons, red and black, whipped violently in the cold wind, and there he was, Aenys Daemon's son. He sat tall in the saddle, cloaked. In deep crimson, the false Blackfyre sword gripped tight in his gauntlet. His expression was proud, defiant. There was no hesitation in his charge. No flicker of recognition, no pause of a son seeing his father. They met with a crash that silenced the world around them. Their swords rang together, sparks flying. Blackfyre, the true blade, cleaved through Aenys's weapon like fire through ice. The boy was strong. Daemon felt it in every strike, but reckless, arrogant, full of Bittersteel's hatred and none of his mother's warmth. "You've been lied to," Daemon growled, locking swords. "You lied first," Aenys spat. "You could have been king. You should have taken the throne. You gave it away like a coward." Daemon's eyes burned. "No, I gave you peace." He shoved Aenys back just as a roar of cavalry split the left flank. Bittersteel himself had entered the fight. Golden armor flashing, he cut down two of Daemon's knights in moments, carving a path toward Daemon and Aenys. Daemon saw him coming, and in that moment, he made a choice. He turned his horse, slamming his shield into Aenys's chest to knock him away. Not to kill him, but to buy time. He rode toward Bittersteel like a storm. The clash of these two bastards, one loyal, one full of vengeance, shook the battlefield. Bittersteel's sword sang with rage, striking at Daemon's neck, shoulders, ribs. But Daemon was stronger, sharper. He fought not for glory, but for redemption. "You poisoned my son," Daemon roared, parrying a brutal strike. "You turned, blood against blood. He was always mine to shape," Bittersteel spat. "You gave up your destiny, I gave him purpose." Their blades met again, once, twice, then Daemon's Blackfyre slammed into Bittersteel's shoulder, slicing deep. Through his golden armor, blood gushed. Bittersteel screamed in rage but didn't fall. He stumbled back, vanishing into the chaos as his guards pulled him away. Daemon turned back. Aenys was gone. The boy had fled the field, wounded and humiliated. The Golden Company, seeing their prince retreat, began to break. Daemon's forces surged forward, cutting down the invaders with fury. By nightfall the battle was done. The field was soaked in blood and broken dreams. Fires burned where siege towers had fallen. Horses screamed and men groaned beneath shattered armor. Daemon stood in the wreckage, his white cloak stained red. He had won, but it felt like loss. The next day, he returned to the capital. The small folk cheered him. "Daemon the Loyal," they shouted, "the dragon who saved the realm." But his heart was heavy. He had fought his own son, and worse, he had let him live. In the throne room, Daemon stood tall as his brother entered. He stepped, down from the Iron Throne and met Daemon in the center of the hall. "No songs will be sung of this war," Daemon said. "Only silence. The boy is your blood. Let that be your punishment." Daemon nodded. "And your mercy." But word travels fast in Westeros. Whispers of Aenys's defeat reached every corner of the realm. Some laughed at him, others pitied him. But in the shadows across the narrow sea, Bittersteel licked his wounds and swore revenge. Daemon may have saved the realm, but peace once again was only borrowed time. Winter came early that year. Snow drifted through the crownlands, soft and white, covering the blood of war like a blanket of silence. The banners had been lowered, the wounded buried or burned, and King Daemon sat safely on the Iron Throne. But Daemon could find no rest. He wandered the halls of the Red Keep like a ghost. The cheers had faded, the songs had grown quiet. His name still stirred awe, but now came with careful glances, hushed tones. Some called him savior. Others traitor to his own blood. He didn't care for either. Daemon spent long nights in the dragon pit, staring at the bones of the great beasts that once ruled the skies. He stood beneath their skulls, like a man awaiting judgment. Blackfyre, the blade he once held so proudly, now rested in a velvet-lined chest untouched. He hadn't drawn it since the day he fought Aenys, and still, every night, he saw his son's face. Not in glory or pride, but twisted in betrayal. "Why did you spare him?" Daemon asked one evening, joining him in the cold shadow of Balerion's skull. Daemon didn't answer right away. "Because I once believed I was him," he said finally. "Hungry for something I thought was mine. Angry at the world, I saw myself and I couldn't kill that." Daemon studied his brother. "He'll return, you know. Bittersteel won't let this lie. They'll come again, with more swords, more lies." "I know," Daemon said, "but not yet. Aenys isn't ready. He tasted war and fear. That will haunt him." But across the sea, fear was not enough. Aenys sat in a cold chamber in Tyrosh, his pride shattered, his shoulder still healing. Bittersteel circled him like a vulture. "You could have killed him," Aenys hissed. "You could have killed my father." "I could have," Bittersteel said darkly, "but it wouldn't have changed what's broken in you." "I'll make him pay," Aenys whispered. "I'll make them all pay." Bittersteel smiled thinly. "Then next time we fight on our terms." The Golden Company began rebuilding. New contracts, more gold, new alliances. Bittersteel sent riders to Myr, Lys, and even Volantis, offering spoils to anyone who'd support the Blackfyre claim. But in Westeros, Daemon had grown tired of waiting. He visited his children, those who remained loyal. He spoke with Baelor Breakspear, Daeron's heir, a kind and just prince who had always admired Daemon's strength. The two became close, perhaps too close for the king's liking. Daeron noticed. "You speak with my son as if preparing him for war," he said one night. "I speak with your son," Daemon replied, "as someone who knows the war is already coming." Tension grew between them, not hatred but mistrust. Daemon had saved the crown, yes, but he was still Blackfyre. His blood, his legacy, his silence. It all made Daemon uneasy. And then came the letter, sealed in gold wax, no name, just a crest. Daemon knew too well. 3 heads of a dragon, but black on a red field. Aenys was raising a fleet. Daemon read it and said nothing. He walked the walls of King's Landing that night, watching the torches flicker across the bay. The wind was sharp. The sea restless. He closed his eyes. He knew what he had to do, not as a prince, not even as a brother, as a father. The ship was small and fast, built for secrecy, not war. Daemon wore no sigil. No guards followed him. Only a single squire and a promise sealed behind gritted teeth. He left in silence before even the king's court awoke. Not even Daemon knew he had gone. The wind cut across the sea like knives. Waves slapped the hull as if warning him to turn back. But Daemon Blackfyre did not turn back. He had made a choice, a father's choice. If Westeros was to avoid another war, he had to end this himself, by blood. They docked at a forgotten smuggler's cove outside Tyrosh. From there, Daemon moved like a shadow, slipping through alleys and wine-stained taverns, until he reached the safe house where Bittersteel and Aenys had built their nest. The Golden Company was no longer just a band of sellswords. It was an army. Mercenaries trained day and night, and ships were already loading barrels of grain and black powder. War was no longer rumor. It was fact. Daemon stood in the dark across the street from their stronghold, watching the guards change. He knew every movement, every weakness. He had trained half these men once. He entered like a ghost. By the time they realized who he was, 3 lay unconscious, and a 4th bled from the thigh. Daemon didn't come to kill. Not yet. He came to speak. To his son. Aenys sat inside a lavish chamber, reading old scrolls about Aegon's conquest, imagining himself the next conqueror. When Daemon entered, the boy shot to his feet, sword half-drawn, eyes wide with disbelief. "You," Aenys breathed. "You're either brave or mad." "Maybe both," Daemon said. "I didn't come to fight." "You should have stayed." "Dead on that battlefield," Aenys snapped. "The realm would have sung louder." "I'm not here for the realm," a long pause. Then, "You're here for me." Daemon nodded slowly. "I came to bring you home." Aenys laughed, cold and bitter. "Home? I have no home. You gave that up the day you bent the knee to Daemon. You knelt like a dog." "I spared a kingdom," Daemon said firmly, "and I spared you. You humiliated me. I saved your life." Their voices echoed, sharp like cracked glass. Outside the door, Bittersteel listened, unmoving. "You think I can just walk away?" Aenys said, stepping closer. "They follow me. The Golden Company believes in me. I am the Blackfyre claim now." Daemon's eyes narrowed. "Then let me tell you what that really means." He stepped forward, placed Blackfyre, the true sword, wrapped in cloth on the table. "You want this? Take it, but know that the moment you draw it, thousands will die. Villages will burn. Brothers will slay brothers. And in the end, you'll be the same as every Targaryen who chased power, alone. Hated, broken." Aenys stared at the blade. His hand trembled. For a moment silence fell, and then the door burst open. Bittersteel stepped inside, sword drawn, eyes blazing. "I warned you," he hissed at Daemon. "I warned you never to come here again." Aenys moved between them. "Stop!" But Bittersteel wasn't listening. "You corrupted him once with weakness. I won't let you do it again." He lunged. Daemon parried the first strike barely. The second scraped his ribs. Blood soaked his tunic. Aenys shouted, "No!" But it was too late. Father and brother clashed again. This time, there was no battlefield. No soldiers, only stone walls and old grudges. Daemon fought with pain in his chest and grief in his eyes. Bittersteel fought like a man with nothing left to lose. It ended when Aenys screamed, "Stop!" He grabbed Daemon's sword hand, pulling him back. Daemon froze. Bittersteel took the moment and struck. His blade sliced across Daemon's back. The old dragon fell to his knees. Aenys stared in horror. His father was bleeding, dying, and Bittersteel stood over him, blade raised. "This is the only way the claim lives," Bittersteel said coldly. But before he could strike the final blow, Aenys did the unthinkable. He raised his own sword and stabbed Bittersteel through the chest. Silence. Bittersteel gasped, eyes wide, blood pouring from his mouth. He looked at Aenys in betrayal. "Traitor," he whispered, and died. Daemon fell to the floor, his breath shallow. Aenys dropped to his knees beside him. "I'm sorry," the boy said. "I didn't know. I didn't understand." Daemon coughed, blood at his lips, but he smiled faintly. "You do now." The wind howled outside the stone walls of Tyrosh like a beast mourning the dead. Inside the dark chamber, the body of Bittersteel lay still on the cold floor. His golden armor cracked, the hilt of Aenys's sword still buried in his chest. Daemon Blackfyre bled quietly, each breath a jagged rasp. His eyes fluttered open as Aenys pressed cloth to his wound, panic on his face. "Stay with me," Aenys whispered. "You're not dying like this, not here." Daemon gave a faint smile. "Didn't think I'd die anywhere else." "You're not dying," Aenys said again, firmer now, as if his voice alone could stop the bleeding. "You came all this way for me. I won't let that be your last act." He turned to the guards who had finally burst in. "Get me a healer, now!" They obeyed. In the days that followed, Daemon drifted between life and death, fevered, and weak. Ennis stayed by his side, ignoring the chaos that followed Bittersteel's death. The Golden Company was leaderless, their future uncertain. Some demanded revenge. Others saw the shift in Ennis and fell quiet, uncertain where to place their swords. When Daemon finally opened his eyes again, the first thing he saw was his son, No, longer full of fire but burdened by it. "You lived," Ennis said softly. "Barely," Daemon replied. "You saved me." "I didn't do it for the realm," Ennis said honestly. "I did it because I couldn't let you die thinking I was just him." Daemon nodded. "You're not." Years passed, as softly and surely as falling snow. King Daemon II ruled for 2 more decades, his reign marked by stability, diplomacy, and the quiet ache of knowing peace had come not from power, but from mercy. He grew older, thinner, and when he died in his sleep, Westeros wept, for even those who hated his Dornish blood could not deny he had kept the realm from fire. Baelor Breakspear took the throne after him, a just and noble king, molded by both his father's wisdom and his uncle, Daemon's fire. His rule was strong, fair, and yet always watched from the edges of memory by the name that still lingered in whispers, Blackfyre. Daemon never returned to court. He lived the rest of his years in a small keep near the Blackwater Rush, visited only by a few loyal friends and, on rare occasions, by Baelor himself. The sword Blackfyre remained with him, locked in a case that no one dared open, not even his squire. When he died, the sky was cloudless. He was buried without great ceremony, as he had wished. Just a stone that read, "He chose loyalty over blood," and saved us all. But what of Ennis? He remained at the wall. Years of silence, cold, and shadows hardened him, but they also cleansed him. He rose to become First Ranger, respected among the brothers despite his past. He never spoke of his name nor of his father, until one winter night. A young recruit asked him about the sword he kept wrapped in cloth beneath his bunk. "Old keepsake," Ennis said with a ghost of a smile. "Family heirloom? Sort of." The boy laughed. "Bet it's cursed." Ennis looked out into the falling snow toward the darkness beyond the wall. "No," he said. "It's not cursed." He looked down at the sword. The last relic of a rebellion that never truly was. It was spared, and so it remained. A sword sheathed, a war avoided, a name remembered not for the fire it could have lit, but for the fire it chose not to.